Yeah, of course. Do you want to just start with intros?
That's probably a good start.
Okay, you want to go left to right?
Absolutely. Hi, everybody. My name is Max Oppenheimer. I'm with the Jewish Federation of St. Louis. I'm born and raised in St. Louis. I am an Orthodox Jew. We will go into what that means in a little bit. But I've been Jewish now for 37 years, and I'm still liking it, so I'm happy to be here with you all today. Only 37?
Not only.
Only 37, but dinosaur compared to half this room, so that's okay.
I'm Rachel. I guess I would categorize myself as Reform, but probably even pushing the secular boundary. I had a really, my upbringing was to be very proud to be Jewish, but it did not have a lot of observances, so I would say definitely more culturally centered on Jewish things and traveling recipes, stories, things like that. And I work for JCRC along with Elise.
Good morning. I'm Elise Picker. I'm also with the Jewish Community Relations Council. I'm the program director over there. I was born and raised in Connecticut and ended up here about 15 years ago. I grew up in a conservative Jewish family, so sort of like in between Reform and Orthodox. So we'll get into more what that means, but definitely a lot of the cultural Judaism, like Rachel said, with a little bit more of the religious background, but not always understanding like the why behind it, because that wasn't considered necessarily as important. So kind of just in the middle.
Well, we talked about being Orthodox, Reform, and Conservative, so I might as well kick that off. So you can categorize it however you want, but it usually comes down to Orthodox Judaism has a little bit more of a I don't want to use the word stringent because we talked about that yesterday. It's not really the right word, but there's a lot more practices that are involved and with a lot more in-depth meaning. A lot of text-based stuff from the Torah and from the rabbis that were, sages, we'll call them. So there's a lot of, it's a very strong observance and connection to Judaism. Not that Reform and Conservative or not. It's just practiced in a little bit more of a different way, and you'll be able to see that as we go on with the presentation.
Do we do Reform next?
Since you're in the middle.
Okay. So I'm going to use the word Reform, but this is really just my interpretation of what I do. So, not as stringent, less observant, whatever terms you want to use. I don't keep kosher. I drive on Shabbat. I do all the things that probably Max may not do unless it's like an emergency or a special situation. I think about, for example, there was a famous rabbi that was really involved in the civil rights movement who has this like famous quote about marching, talking about how he felt like his feet were praying, and that's sort of like, that feels really spiritual to me and really connecting to like the what other people may get in synagogue services feels like when I'm involved in like activism, advocacy, social justice, that feels like a spiritual, faithful situation, and so that's sort of where I'm coming from. But there are Reform synagogues that have beautiful services and interpretations of Torah and things like that.
Yeah, so conservative sometimes is a little confusing, but it's not politically conservative. It's more just like it falls kind of in the middle. They've kind of conserved some of the observances that Orthodox Judaism has with a little bit more leniency. So kind of a good example of that is like the synagogues, like any conservative synagogue will keep kosher within the building. They will have separate kitchens for meat and dairy, and we'll talk a little more about the rules of kosher a little bit later. You can only bring kosher food into the synagogue, but the individual people who belong to the synagogue in their own homes, more often than not, do not keep kosher or keep some version of it, maybe in their house, but they'll eat anything out in restaurants. I grew up keeping kosher at home, but being able to make my own choices, like when we went to restaurants outside. We have Shabbat, I grew up having Shabbat dinner every Friday night at home. We always did the blessings over the candles and the challah and the wine. I wasn't allowed to go out on Friday nights until I got a little bit older, and I pushed back on that and finally got my way. But I was meant to be home on Saturday mornings. We usually would go to Saturday morning Shabbat services, but we drove there. We used electricity on Shabbat. So kind of a little bit retaining some of what you do in Orthodox Judaism, but relaxing it a little bit in an effort to because, over time, Jewish people in the United States wanted to assimilate more into their general communities. This was kind of a way to do that while still retaining the essence of where they came from. And so like today now in my own family with my own children, like we do Shabbat dinner on Friday nights. We'll go to Shabbat morning services most Saturdays, not every Saturday, but we also will let our kids participate in other activities that happen to fall over Shabbat. So we're a little bit more flexible. We keep kosher at home. We eat certain things out of the home, but not everything. So kind of that's kind of in between a little bit, picking and choosing what you want to keep.
So let's go back for a second. So we're throwing around a lot of terms here: Shabbat, kosher, all these. Is this English to anybody? Do you understand, or is this like a foreign term? It's really okay if it's not. Who here, by a show of hands, who here has heard of Shabbat? Great. The Sabbath, if you haven't. It's common for some people, not in Judaism, but you've heard the Sabbath being practiced on a Sunday. Ours is practiced on Saturday, Friday night and Saturday, because in the Jewish calendar, there's a whole other calendar, the Hebrew calendar, it is a lunar calendar. So the next day will start tonight. So talking about Shabbat like that is our Sabbath, and we were talking a little bit of different levels of observance. So for example, as an Orthodox Jew, you're going to hear a lot of, I don't do this, I don't do that, but it comes from a place of, I get to not do this, I get to not do that. Cell phones, we were talking about electricity, Elise said that. So on Shabbat is the day of rest. So yeah, not using your phone, not driving your car, all those they don't sound particularly restful to me, especially since I walk to synagogue on Friday nights and Saturdays. I don't use my phone. I don't light a flame. I keep lights on, but I don't use the light switch personally, because it's called an act of work. Doesn't seem like a lot of work, right? That's kind of like a weird thing to describe as work, because it's just flipping on and off a light switch. We even have, at my office, we walk in and the lights go on for you. So what is this work that we're talking about here? Right? God said, do not work on the Sabbath, you rest. Okay? So what does rest mean? Rest means, at least from the perspective in which I've grown into I've grown up with, and I still practice today, and I teach my kids and everything, is let's separate yourself from all the physicalities of the world and really focus on the spiritualities of the world. So I would much rather on Shabbat, or Shabbos as I more often refer to it as Shabbos versus Shabbat, just because of an Ashkenazi thing, doesn't matter. But anyway, this is not a spiritual thing. How many times in your life can you think about oh, my phone is ringing, my phone is ringing, but I can also text my friend and tell them where I am. There's pros and cons, but turning your phone off, there's nothing like it. There's really nothing like it. And on Shabbat, I get to do that. I get to separate myself from the physicalities of the world and really focus on the spiritualities and really kind of focus on God and how God gives me all these wonderful gifts of friends and family and a job, and it's truly remarkable. And sometimes it's really hard to reflect on all of that when you're engulfed in the physicalities that the world has to offer.
And for Shabbat at my house, it is one thing that we do, but it's very, very different from what Max just explained. But for us, we lean into those things that you can do. So really, you're supposed to light Shabbat candles before sunset.
Yeah.
But for us, because we kind of have different routines in our house, we do Shabbat, but it might be before, it might be after, we might do something, we might go to the movies after it, but we do lean into that when we're doing Shabbat, when we're actually lighting candles, we're actually eating challah, we're leaning into no phones, we're talking about what we want to happen in the coming week, and what, just all the good things, sharing blessings for each other. And we do try to keep a level of, put this away, put that aside. We're here just to be a family and to welcome the coming week and say goodbye to the last week and what's going on. And but then we might go out to the movie, or we might go out to dinner somewhere, and that's how we do Shabbat on Friday nights.
Yeah, so I think I talked a little bit before about how we do Shabbat. So yeah, again, it's like a one night of the week now that I know everyone's going to be home and at the dinner table, and I make challah every week, which I think you brought some.
I brought some challah.
Yeah. So I make challah, which is the traditional kind of grated egg bread. It's very yummy. So I do that every week. We light the candles, we bless our children, we have a special dinner.
All for you.
The family. The one thing I do try to take a break from on Shabbat is, like, I will use my phone, but I stay off social media, because that to me is like something I can very consciously take a break from, and it's a really nice break once a week to have. We will often go to services on Saturday morning, and so we are focused, on that in the morning. Sometimes there's celebrations at the synagogue. There might be a bar bat mitzvah, which is a coming of age ceremony when a child turns 12 or 13. There might be a baby naming. There might be some other celebrations. So it's really nice to have all the people in the community come together for that. But then after that, as the day goes on, we will typically go about our day doing what needs to be done. Although, like, sometimes we'll say no to certain things that we feel like maybe we shouldn't be doing on Shabbat.
Go ahead, yes.
So on Shabbat, you said like day of rest, right? So I know you all kind of touched on it, but what are you doing? Like, are you able to prepare dinner? Like, what does that look like?
What an amazing question. What's your name?
Aaliyah.
Aaliyah, thank you so much for the question. So what was that?
I cannot do a meal.
Challah all weekend long.
So, yeah.
That's right. So yeah, included in that work, we're not supposed to do, it involves cooking and all that kind of stuff. So on Fridays, part of why I love working for the Jewish Federation is on Fridays we actually work from home. While I have plenty to do,
Okay.
If I have a break in between meetings, I can throw some chicken in the oven. Like I can, I've mastered some quick recipes. There's cookbooks out there. One's called Dinner Done. You have that cookbook? It's a great cookbook. All right, you have like all these recipes have like just a few ingredients, and you just need a foil pan. You throw it in the oven, boom, you're ready. So I'm able just to do that. Or on Thursday nights, my wife and I will cook together we frequently have guests, because it can, not that I don't enjoy spending time with my wife, but if you have, especially now that we're in the spring calendar where Shabbos doesn't end until sundown, which is 8:15 at night, and you're taking it in 25 hours before. You like friends. Friends are great. So we hang out with our friends. Our kids get together with their friends. We play board games. We can go out. But now the weather's getting nicer. We can play catch. Really, like my son and his friend Jack, they very much enjoy playing hockey and destroying the basement, which is incredible. So things like that. Just really anything you would probably think to do if you didn't have a phone or a TV.
Okay.
So it's really, but in terms of when to cook, to your original question, we do all of that before.
Gotcha.
We do all of that before. Actually, I'll use that to talk about, I love food. If you can't tell by looking at me, I love food. So it's really, there's a food called cholent.
Oh.
Okay, yeah. You know what? I will respect your views, but do not hate on my cholent. Okay? That's
I'm
fine.
sure yours is delicious.
Oh, it's
Award-winning.
It is award-winning. Thank you very much. So
I gotta Google it.
yeah, CHOLENT.
Okay.
So I nickname it Jew stew because that's what it is. It's like you have meat, barley, beans, potatoes, all those things, and you put different spices. I'll put like salami in there too, or hot dogs to spice it up a little bit. It's really just fun fact: if you type cholent CHOLENT into your phone, it will autocorrect to cholesterol. so
That's funny.
yeah. So we put that up before Shabbos on Friday afternoon, and then we just let it cook until lunchtime, and it's like a really popular dish to serve then. So we really do all that prep on Friday, Thursday night. My sister, she's an Instagram influencer in Boston, Mandy Licious. She makes all these challahs. That's what she is. She's incredible. She'll entertain 30 people. And she'll start cooking on Wednesday.
Okay.
Yeah.
And people get really creative with the challah. We have, Elise and I work with someone who might shape hers in a way that has to do with the Torah portion that we're reading that week, which is sort of like our sacred text or whatever. And so, or different flavors, and so that's also the cholent.
Yeah.
People get
cholent.
people get very creative just to again bring in sort of what's special about this Shabbat and what can we do that's different than last week.
So is challah is that like the name of that? I don't know. I'm gonna call it a dinner, but I don't know if it's.
No,
That's
challah is
just
what
a
you're
bread.
eating right
Yeah.
now. Challah is what you're eating right now.
Oh.
Cholent is the dish I was referring to.
So you eat this every time?
Friday. Yeah.
Okay.
Leftovers also make excellent French toast.
Oh, totally. Trader Joe's, they have the best store-bought challah. So there was a long period of time where you go shopping at Trader Joe's and you buy challah. The staff, I kid you not, must have been trained to say, "Oh, this is phenomenal French toast." Like you like go check out, here's the peas, here's the carrots, here's this, oh, the challah. This is great French toast every single time.
But back to your question about like the not being able to cook. So my brother-in-law and sister-in-law are more observant than we are, and so they will not cook on Shabbat. And a lot of families will have kind of like there's actually like the hot plate. Do you guys have like
Yeah.
like
A
a
blech.
plug-in? Yes,
Or a
thank you.
plata.
Gotta get that.
Flech or a plata,
Yes,
however you want
so
to
it's
say
like
it.
basically like a big hot plate that they plug in before Shabbat starts, and they
Okay.
can put like the tinfoil pans of food they prepared on that, and it'll keep it warm at a low temperature for all of Shabbat. So they can still, they're not doing any cooking, but because it's turned on before Shabbat, they can then eat that food, you know,
Okay.
until Shabbat is over.
Exactly.
Can you talk a little bit, because I didn't know this until you said something, that like refrigerators have a Shabbat feature.
Totally.
So can you talk about just different things that already exist that sort of make your life a little bit easier?
Oh my gosh, what a great question. Thank you so much. So yes, so I talked about turning lights on and off as well. That implies and includes refrigerators too. So you open up the refrigerator, the light goes on, that's a problem. So you're like, oh no, Max, what are you gonna do? So we go crazy. And so there's the old school refrigerators that have like the little switch on top. And maybe some of you have them still. I still have one downstairs in my basement. But we tape that switch down so you don't have to worry about it, and it's totally fine. Then you get to a little bit newer models like I have that don't have that. They're like, oh, here, we don't have that janky little switch thing that gets in the way of putting in a soup pot in or something. So now what we're gonna do is just have it go on and off automatically. Whoa, that's a big problem for Max. Okay, like what are we gonna do? So I embarrassingly looked really deep into this feature because I bought this fridge, this is a few years ago now. There's actually a spot on top where if you put a magnet on top of it, the lights just disable. The fridge still works, but the lights are disabled. So that was wild. Now, they actually make refrigerators that have what's called Sabbath mode. You have a lot of that on your oven too. If you ever look, you'll see something called Sabbath mode, where you turn it on, the fridge light will either remain on or off, depending on how the setting goes. There's also a device that is sold. It is, I will never spend $250 on this, but like you can actually plug it in somewhere near your fridge, and you can create, like you can mess with the hardwire, or you can hardwire the system and have it turn, I don't know. My parents have one, I'm embarrassed to admit that, but they have it. But there are actual refrigerators with Sabbath mode features. Excuse me.
Do we want to go into Passover then? Or-
We can go into Passover. I mean, let's talk
Let's
about
talk about
kashrut.
kosher.
Yeah, let's talk
Okay.
about kashrut first. So we mentioned, who here has heard of the word kosher? I love that. That's phenomenal. What do we know about kosher?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, just throw it at us.
I
We're
would
ready.
say everything's separate.
Great.
Meat and dairy, for
Mhm.
sure, so I'm talking, I actually, rented, my apartment in Brooklyn was with a Jewish family, and so like, they invited us over a lot, and they had separate fridges, separate dishwashers, separate ovens, separate sinks.
Did you go to a lot of Shabbat meals with them?
We went to a few.
Yeah?
And so those were interesting. I also witnessed them going through mourning and everything else. Like I witnessed a lot of things. And also I was called a lot to turn on lights.
Oh, you're a Shabbos goy. Amazing.
And every time I did, I'm like, are you cheating? But I was like,
Yeah.
I was like, I'd be happy to do it because they had young kids and she was afraid of the dark. So I was like, it's fine, no
Oh,
big deal.
first of all, you have no idea how much that meant to that family.
Yeah, I was
mean,
like,
I'm
it's
serious.
fine.
Right? We actually, very recently, up until very recently, we had these neighbors across the street. He's Coptic Orthodox, and she converted to Coptic Orthodox, like Egyptian, all that kind of stuff. Amazing family. They came over every Friday night for 3 years. We would have them over, and it was just, it actually, JCRC just hosted an interfaith Passover Seder. That's kind of how it was, because we were all just, and we had other neighbors over too. It was just so nice just to be able to sit around the table and discuss other practices, and very warm and comfortably, and no judgment, of course, and get my dishwasher turned on in the process. So it was great. So.
And I also learned that it's also like how it's cooked too. So because I also worked with a guy, Aaron, who practiced, and we had a lot of
Here?
potlucks. No, not here. It was in New York.
Okay.
And we had potlucks, and I noticed that he wasn't eating, and I was like, oh, if I bought all kosher things and made it, would that work? And he's like, no, it's way more complicated than that. And so
He's
then
right.
instead, I went to the kosher Chinese restaurant and got egg rolls.
Oh.
instead.
Oh,
So I was like-
delicious.
so
You're
I
a
was
good
like-
friend.
I was like, if I buy it, does that count? He's like, yeah, that's fine. I was like, okay, so
You're a
I
good
just
friend.
purchased everything then. But yeah, I didn't realize that we also have to have like, a rabbi to bless the food and like, all, yeah.
You don't, that's a myth.
Yeah. Oh, is it?
Yeah,
Okay.
totally.
Okay.
So it's the rabbi blessing the food is like people are like, oh, that's what, and this is just from my practices. You guys feel free to chime in. So a rabbi blessing of food, like you don't go to a food and you're like, food, you are now kosher. That's not what it is. It's the rabbi bless. It's more like a certified, what's called a mashgiach, like a food supervisor almost, like just
Yeah, that's what I meant.
yeah, to sit there and observe and make sure that the food is, the word kosher literally means fit, so it's fit for consumption. So to make sure that it's that the process is following Jewish law to be fit for consumption. That's what kosher. That's what kosher means, is fit. So there's no blessing involved. It's just a matter of supervision. So that's your personal experience with kosher. Who else? Or anybody else have any experiences or anything they want to share? Or Ezra, I know you got something back there.
Well, I'm a constructionist, so that's another denomination.
Come on up.
Oh, get this man a name tag. Let's go.
But about kosher food, you think?
Yeah, just leave it. I was just joking around. I don't want to share anything you don't have to. But
No, my grandma grew up very much more traditional, and but she had 4 sets of dishes at home, right? So she had meat and dairy, and then also for Passover on that. And she felt like though her mom was working constantly, so she decided that she wanted to assimilate more, be kind of American, and so she loved to break cans to open and whatever else, and like that was. And so my parents were raised differently and not kosher, but my grandma, to her dying day, never ate pork. She wouldn't have pepperoni pizza. She had no religious belief about it. It was just something that to her was like not part of her culture, part of who she was. And then I'll say, so some folks that are maybe less traditional, also there's a term called kosher style, which like not mixing meat and dairy, maybe not having pork in the space, but having stuff that's cooked there. But also some people talk about like ethical kashrut, so some people may not eat like factory farmed animals or stuff, or like, and reinterpret that as kind of how they're doing their kind of like what is food fit for eating kind of things. But yeah, I don't know. I guess one question I'd have. So I've heard differing opinions on like. I've heard Jews use this as well. But like when people say like, oh, that's kosher, or that's treifur, that's like. But people use that not for food and for other things. And I've heard some people just use that and like that's part of their culture. I've heard other people be not like that and find that that's kind of like, I don't know, not being respectful to.
Yes, I don't personally like when people say like, even in the Jewish community, when you say like something like, I don't even know. Like, is it kosher if I wear this to this event or whatever? It does feel like a little icky to me, if that's what you're getting at.
Yeah, that's what
Yeah, it's one of those things that like, I'm not gonna call somebody out on it, especially if they are someone who's Jewish, but it does feel like one of those terms that's like, some things are best kept in context, but that's.
So I'll actually piggyback off of that. So I know there's a Kesha song. I think it might be TikTok. It's like, we are keeping it kosher in the song.
Yes.
So I think, is that what you're referring to? Stuff like that,
Yeah.
like just not in terms of like food, but so yeah, there's that. It personally doesn't bother me. Like, and I say it all the time. I'm a Mel Brooks guy, so like I watch that kind of stuff all the time. But there are actually, I brought a mezuzah. Who here has heard the term mezuzah?
I have one too.
You have one also?
You
So
guys will-
this is an item, not a food. And feel free to pass it around. This is an item, and you'll see a little scroll inside. Okay, so that's not for consumption, but that is a kosher mezuzah. It is a fit mezuzah. First, it is an acceptable one. It is, and I'll explain what that is in just a moment. But it's not a food, but it is a religious item that is still considered fit or kosher. So a mezuzah, and I still want to go back into kosher for a second, but we'll go on our roundabout way of getting there. That mezuzah actually goes on a doorpost. So that is probably one of the most commonly practiced Jewish practices. Why not? Jewish practices around all of our levels of observance is a mezuzah. I would venture to say, Rachel, you have a mezuzah on your home.
Not today.
Not today. So we all might do different things, but we definitely observe that there should be a mezuzah on our doorpost. The significance is that it is a sign that God is protecting us. This is a Jewish home, and Rachel, how many, and Elise, Rachel, you have one mezuzah, at least you probably have on every door, most doors.
Except the bathroom.
Except the bathrooms, exactly.
Yes.
Yeah, and personally, I have one on every door except the bathrooms as well. Bathroom is deemed not an appropriate place for a scroll with God's name in it to
And
be.
also like a box of all the extra ones we have, but our house isn't big enough to accommodate all the ones we've been given over the years.
That's amazing.
So does it go in the actual door or like?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
Are they all, the same, or are they all specific to your family?
So that's one thing that I love is that they can either be kosher or not kosher, but the actual like box, as you can see, the ones that are being passed around, they have ones that are like ornate and colorful, like for kids that are beautiful. People
Yeah,
get them-
Legos, like
It's-
you can
it's-
get all.
It's
Yeah.
what's on the inside, not the outside.
Yes.
that
Yeah,
counts,
I'm sorry, I meant what was on the inside.
Yeah.
Oh,
It's
yeah,
the
yeah.
actual
The inside is,
soul
Yeah.
yeah, the
It's
same.
all
Would it all say the
Yeah.
same thing on the inside?
Yeah, so there's probably like the keynote prayer for Judaism is a Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, which means essentially God is one. And it is the ultimate key phrase to the monotheistic religion that we are a part of. So that is in.
So it goes in the doorpost slanted slightly on a slight angle about there, and people who are a little bit more like Orthodox or observant will also like. Do you kiss them?
I touch and kiss the mezuzah every time I walk through the door.
And I think, I could be wrong,
Out of respect.
Sephardi had theirs straight up and down, I think I read right.
So actually, so that's a really, no, so not really, but it's a really cool point that you're bringing up, because in Judaism, when there's, as you see right in front of you today, there's so much difference of opinion, and for good and bad, it's not a bad thing, but there's one of the most famous sages, his name is Rabbi Shlomo Yitzchaki, or Rashi is his name, okay, and he had a grandson named the Rabbeinu Tam, and they argued if the mezuzah should be straight on the doorpost or vertical or horizontal on the doorpost. They were going back and forth, and finally, and I say this over at friends' weddings, and finally they were like, you know what we're gonna do? We're gonna compromise. We're going to have it slanted a little bit. So because that's what you go into a home, you want it to not only be a safe home, but a peaceful home and a home of compromise. And it's really a beautiful thing, just because it's a reminder every single day that like, is whatever fight you're in, is it really worth it? Is whatever you're going to talk about with whoever lives in this house, is it worth breaking a friendship over? Are your political views different? Are you Jewish? Are you religiously different? Whoever walks through your door, we want there to be peace. So it's a really beautiful sign that every single day when you walk through those doors, that this is a house of protection from God and peace.
What's the significance of vertical versus horizontal?
I don't know.
Just curious.
It's just how it fits, I
Yeah.
guess. I don't know.
Kind of going back to the food questions and kosher stuff.
What we started with, yeah.
Well, so I was thinking, I do this actively, but now it's sort of a subconscious thing. I don't keep kosher. Other than kind of what Ezra was saying, like there's a little bit of like, well, I won't eat ham, that's whatever. But we are very intentional about if we're with friends who do keep a certain level of kosherness, kashrut, we kind of follow that. So my son has a really good friend who keeps kosher but will eat dairy outside. When we take him for pizza or whatever, we're getting cheese or veggie. We're not buying him something separate, or we're not eating in front of him something that he couldn't have. And that's just, even if, we work at a Jewish organization that you can bring in whatever you want. I don't feel comfortable bringing in a bacon cheeseburger, for example. That's just another one of those things that might just be specific to what feels right for me.
Yeah, I'll say we keep kosher at home, which is a phrase you'll hear from a lot of people outside the Orthodox community. So in our home, we buy only kosher meat, beef and chicken. We don't eat pork or shellfish. We keep our meat and our dairy separate. We have separate sets of dishes for meat and dairy. I have a whole other set for Passover. We'll get more into that later. Pots and pans are separate. We have one refrigerator. I'm fine with things being in the refrigerator together. Well, I do have two refrigerators. One's in the garage for the extra stuff. But we put all of our things, in there. I do have two ovens, but I don't designate one as meat or dairy, but I will only put one thing in at a time. we have one sink, but we switch out the insert when I'm washing meat dishes versus dairy dishes. I do 2 dishwashers, which is a huge, amazing, incredible luxury that when we renovated our kitchen a couple years ago, I said, if we're gonna do this, we're putting in 2 dishwashers because we only use our dishwasher for dairy dishes, and I hand washed all of our meat stuff, and I just felt like they never got fully clean. And so when we were doing the design for our kitchen, I said, let's just go for it and put in 2 dishwashers. It's fantastic. But outside of the home, we are a little more flexible. So I will eat vegetarian or dairy or fish in a restaurant. I won't eat any meat or chicken, but I will eat in a non-kosher restaurant. I'll get cheese pizza, I'll get, a vegetable sandwich, whatever. Living in St. Louis, there are not a whole lot of kosher restaurant options. So when we travel sometimes to other cities that do have kosher restaurants, Chicago is a great example. It's a real treat for my kids to be able to go get like a hamburger at a restaurant because we can't really do that here in St. Louis, which can be a little bit frustrating because what kid doesn't want to go get like a hot dog or burger when they're out? Personally, for me, if I'm out with friends who don't keep kosher, it doesn't bother me what they eat. If Rachel and I are going to go out for lunch and she wants to get the bacon cheeseburger, that is totally fine with me. I'm going to order what I want to eat that is fit for me. Really quickly, that's kind of similar to how I grew up also. And then when I went to college, I decided, forget this, I'm not doing this. I had a few years where I ate whatever I wanted. Still wouldn't eat pork or mixed meat and dairy, but I would eat, I would go to get a hamburger or whatever. And it wasn't until I got a little bit older where I realized I wasn't doing really anything Jewish at all, but keeping kosher was something I could do every day, multiple times a day to remind myself that, I still am Jewish. I wasn't going to synagogue at the time. I wasn't, celebrating, I really wasn't doing a whole lot. So it was a very conscious decision for me to start keeping kosher again because I knew that at every meal it was something I was making a decision to do and to observe, and that's kind of how I came back to it and continue today.
So if we had a friend who was kosher, what are the general rules we should know? I say rules, but you know what I mean, kind of down and dirty, this is what you need to know to help them. Does that make sense? Or
If you wanted to have them in your home for a meal?
Or something.
I'm gonna sneeze.
Oh, bless you, that was a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Ashley
maybe we can
said?
do a little role play. Max, come over to my house for dinner.
No.
Okay.
I'm in, sounds great. What do you need from me? What can we bring?
So how would you politely say thank you, but no thank you?
Probably yes.
Okay.
But if you kept insisting we really want, and I've had this before, and people are so kind and so considerate. It's really wonderful and meaningful, and they'll say, well, what can I do to make the food kosher? It's really hard. I would never ask anyone to ever do that.
Because you're keeping everything separate.
Okay, everything's separate, and then your oven. So again, food isn't just kosher. Your oven's kosher also.
Okay.
Your microwave's
Like the
kosher.
equipment.
Exactly.
Okay.
All of that stuff is kosher too.
Yeah.
So it's
Okay.
for you, someone to be like, yeah, I'll happily have you over my house. What do I need to do to make it kosher? I'm like, I would never in a million years. I will tell you no.
Yeah, okay.
I will tell you no before I even think about asking to do that. The best way to have someone over that keeps kosher is to get it catered.
Okay.
And then, which, as Elise was saying, it's a little hard in this town right now. Hopefully, soon it will be hopefully better. We had an establishment here called Cones that was around for 63 years, and it was fueling the kosher keeping community this entire time. The owner retired and sold it to some lug nut, and he just did not run it well, and it closed in 2 years.
We won't ship it.
So anyway, I'm not bitter, it's fine. But that's where we got fresh meat from, that's where we got pre-made food. While there are still some options in town that you can do that from, it's not quite the same, but hopefully we're working towards getting it in the right direction. So to answer your question, it's probably just easier to get it catered and eat on paper plates.
I think the distinction of your equipment has to be kosher. That I'm okay. That
Yeah.
makes sense.
No, totally, absolutely. It's I actually so Maryville, Illinois, I think is 10-15 minutes from here. So I actually have it's a wild story how I met this gentleman. He is a retired Delta airline pilot and loves Jews. He's so great. And so I met through a friend of mine who's also a Delta airline pilot. He goes, you got to meet this guy. You just got to meet him. So I met with him when Cones was around. We ate lunch fine. He ended up inviting me and my wife and my kids to his house and said, can you please, we want to feed you, what can you do? I'm like, please don't feed us, it's really not necessary. He goes, my wife's gonna go to Walmart, what can she buy at Walmart? So there's snacks, oh You bring the Oreos in the end or no? No, sorry. So that you can have like if you go to like a grocery store, you'll find like a symbol on like a bag of Lay's potato
Here, you
chips.
gotta-
Oh yeah, here you can go ahead. Oh, like you'll frequently find this an OU or I suck at drawing. I don't even want
You don't have to draw the other ones, that's the
yeah, I'm not
easiest
gonna
one to
draw
draw.
that. They are on the, actually, if you wanna look on that challah bag, you'll see there's like a little, like the tag, there's like a, yeah, right there.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
VK.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So that's that OVK, that is the local certification. The OU is a national organization. So that, like, you find, yeah, boom.
Okay.
Exactly. So you find symbols on like, so I said, why don't you just go ahead and buy some of those and we'll have them. And I'm like, you know what we'll do? This guy, when I took him to this Cone's place, he loved it. They are known for their pastrami. Like, they just love the pastrami. So we went to Cone's and we bought him like 3 pounds of pastrami. We're like, here, like, here's a gift. Thank you so much. They ended up putting it out on a plate and we were there for like 4 hours. They had this giant movie room. The kids didn't leave. And then we just hung out at their bar for like 4 hours drinking and eating pastrami. It was a great day. I don't know. Anyway, but we talked about kosher and mixing milk and meat, or not mixing milk and meat in our case. Do you guys know where that comes from? So the entire concept of kosher, if you ask us why we do it, we cannot give you or I cannot give you an answer. Because there are 2 types of laws in Judaism. There's one called a mishpat, which is a law that we know exactly how and when and why we do it. Then there's a law called a chukah, which I'm going to have everybody say together in a minute. No, a chukah, which is a law that we do just because God said so. So keeping kosher comes from the verse in the Torah, the Jewish Bible, do not mix a kid, referring to a baby goat, in its mother's milk. And from that one phrase, this entire concept of kosher blossomed. So, but what you can learn from it, because it says it pretty explicitly, like, do not mix the meat and the milk together. So, again, talking about cheeseburgers, like, I know I look like I've had a few, but I've never had a cheeseburger in my entire life. I'm what's called FFB, from birth, from meaning observant, religious, or practicing Jew. From birth, there are other people that they discover later in life, or there are people that kind of go back and forth. I know Elise had some stuff going on in college where she kind of came back to her roots and is now, she talked about a friend that works at the office at JCRC, but really Elise herself is a phenomenal baker and makes these terrific challahs.
More than that.
Yeah.
A lot of stuff.
A lot of stuff. But anyway, that's where it comes from, is this whole concept of kosher, and why do we do it? We do it because God says so.
I have a question.
Of
I'm going to
course.
ask you two. So, if you do want to have a quote-unquote cheeseburger,
Yeah.
would you prefer real
That's a
meat,
real good question.
real meat,
Real
fake
meat.
cheese,
Real meat.
fake meat, real cheese?
Real
I'm
meat,
gonna go
real
fake
cheese.
meat, real cheese, because I cannot stand the taste and the texture of vegan cheese at all.
Yeah, I don't
I
want
just
cheese.
can't.
I don't want any cheese on my burgers. Give me a meat.
So
Ever watch-
that's my question. Is it, you can't have it in the same meal, or it just can't be together?
What
Like,
a
could I
great!
have
You are
a
asking
hamburger
amazing questions.
and mac and cheese, or like I have to have it 2 separate times?
Oh,
Yes.
you are so
I
great.
was just talking about this with one of my kids this morning, because she always gets it confused.
Go ahead.
Okay, so you can have dairy, you can have a dairy meal or a dairy snack, and then you can have meat. Once you clear that away, you can have meat a minute later, it's fine.
Okay.
That's accurate, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
Maybe for
You-
you.
for you.
Yeah,
No,
yeah.
okay.
For us,
But-
yeah.
if you have meat, you have to wait a certain period of time before you can have dairy, and that period of time, I don't know if there's like an official amount of time, but it varies, like family to family, individual customs. I grew up with it being 2 hours, and so we wait 2 hours. You're probably waiting longer.
I wait 3.
Okay, 3. Some people will wait 6.
Yep, or
Like,
5 in 1 minute.
And so sometimes we'll have these conversations with my kids. There's like events we go to, and like the Jewish Community Center will have like a big event, and they'll provide food for purchase that is kosher. But they'll also have an ice cream truck. And my kids want to get the burger, but they also want ice cream. And so in situations like that, I'm like, go have your ice cream first.
Dessert
Right.
comes
Like,
first.
you go to town, go to the ice cream truck, get whatever you want. When you finish it, then you can have lunch. Because otherwise, if they have their lunch first, we're not gonna be at the event long enough for them to then go to the ice cream truck. So just this morning, my kid was taking, like, on her way out the door, like a chocolate milk and a beef stick. And she couldn't remember which one she could have first. And I'm like, finish your chocolate milk first. Save the beef stick for snacks later.
Did you bring some here?
Why is
No,
it
I
that
got some
order
here.
though?
What?
Why is it that order?
So that's a great question as well.
I
So
don't have an
meat is
answer.
considered the more dominant substance, where there are more practices that we like in the times of the temple, like sacrifices brought to God were meat. So it's more, I don't use the word respectful, but like it's something along those lines. This is just the more it's yeah. I don't know, I can't really go much further into it than that without making it meat seem like a person, and I'm not going to do that. so it's just more of a like, I am meat, hear me roar. Like, I don't know. Or it depends on how much you like it cooked. So
And what's the deal with shellfish and pigs?
excellent.
What
So
is the
pigs.
deal?
I mean, it's like I know the rule, but I'm like, what is why?
Totally. So again, the Torah explicitly states that a kosher animal. Well, first of all, there's two animals that the Torah says are absolutely not kosher under any circumstances. One is a pig, and the other is a rabbit. Why? Because a kosher mammal has to have split hooves and chew its cud.
Let's cut.
So it's kind of like almost a
It's food.
regurgitation.
Oh.
Like the best way to watch an animal chew its cud is to YouTube a giraffe chewing its cud, because it's the most explicit because of the neck. So it's also really gross, but you can totally check it out if you want to. But yeah, and split hooves. So pigs have split hooves, but they don't chew their cud. And shellfish, a kosher fish has to have fins and scales, and shellfish don't. And you can't. And like shark, for example, also like it's a. And same with birds too. It's like a prey, like it's a fish of prey or a bird of prey. Like I couldn't eat an eagle.
But you can eat a chicken.
I could eat a chicken, which I do frequently, but it's no, but I don't. But yeah, I don't. Any of that stuff. Not for me. Those shark bites you get at Cyberg's, I can't do it. I'm sorry. I know it hurts. You ever go to 54th Street Grill in the Valley? Oh. I used to work as a recreational therapist in a nursing home, and we would take this is a stupid story. we used to take these amazing people to just an outing to go out for lunch, So we would take them to Red Lobster, okay? And I can't eat lobster either, right? So we're sitting down there. I don't even know if they're gonna get this. We're sitting down, and they're going around the table, and I always brought like a turkey sandwich, and I sat there, I checked with the staff, made sure I told them my dietary restrictions, said, can I please, they totally fine with it. I sat down at the table, and they go around, I'll be like, Bonnie, what would you like? I'll have the lobster biscuit, I'll have some biscuits. So go around the table, Gertrude, what would you like? I'll have this fish, fish and chips, okay, fine. They get over to me, like, how's your gefilte fish? And they're like, gefilte fish is a strict, like it's a very Jewish dish.
You didn't bring any of that.
I did,
You're welcome.
No, and, yeah, we didn't bring any of that.
Those
But I
are
was just
the
messing around with them,
standard
and they're like, well, let me go check with the manager, sir. I'm so sorry. I'm like, no, I heard you guys have phenomenal gefilte fish. And they're like, sir, I really don't know what you're talking about. I'm like, fine. No, I was just joking around, and they were always pretty good sports about it. But yeah. So-
I have another question.
Yeah.
Just, in general. So like, whenever I think of Jewish folks, I know kosher and I know like Sabbath and like Rosh Hashanah and stuff. But what is like the tradition or holiday or just cultural thing that you practice that makes you feel like is like your favorite, or makes you feel most proud, or makes you feel just like most like, yeah, this is who we are?
I love
Favorite
that
question,
Thank you.
yes.
Go ahead, guys.
I know.
I know so
Or
many.
a few, just something that maybe us muggles don't quite know.
I mean,
Thank you. Take care.
so
You just call yourself a muggle?
Yeah.
That's great.
we were joking about gefilte fish, which I actually do kind of like, but it is a weird food. There actually are some really great Jewish foods, and so that's probably one of my favorite things. Like, I will try to make things that are traditional for different holidays. So on Rosh Hashanah, we talk about the challah. On Rosh Hashanah, we braid our challahs into a round shape for a number of reasons. One of them being that like the year is, we're completing another cycle around the calendar. And so I will make, sometimes I'll make like apple and honey filled challah, because we eat apples and honey on Rosh Hashanah. On Yom Kippur we fast, so I'm not cooking anything for Yom Kippur. But for on Hanukkah, like I will fry donuts. It's traditional to eat foods that are fried in oil, so I'll make homemade donuts for my kids, or I'll make latkes, which is a potato pancake. On Purim, which was just last month, and I won't get into the whole detail of the story, we'll be here till tomorrow, but we eat this like triangle shaped cookie called a hamantaschen with different fillings, so I like always make like fun versions of that. I know we're gonna talk a little bit about Passover when we wrap things up, but Passover is starting Saturday night. I need like another month to get ready, because I am not even close. I've done nothing except grocery shop. But I will make like different foods over Passover that are kind of traditional. So I always feel very connected through the food, both like making it and then sharing it with other people.
I am gonna get a lot of this wrong, but this is again how like
It's not wrong, it's your level of observance and how you connect. There's
Thank
nothing
you,
wrong about
I
that.
appreciate that.
You're welcome.
So Sukkot is what I'm going to choose because,
Great. holiday.
so, I won't get into like what Sukkot really is because I don't even know if I could really explain it.
You
Maybe
sit in
wanna
a hut and eat for a
Yes.
week.
Okay, But it is one of the holidays, like I said, I'm not super observant. We don't do a whole lot in the home, but we do put up a sukkah, which is that little hut. We decorate it, we make a thing of it, like a whole night. We invite people over. This past year, every visitor that came that would eat with us in our sukkah, we would take like a Polaroid picture, hang it up for the whole holiday. And I love those. I love the holidays that are really observed in the home because, again, someone who's not super active in like a synagogue, anything I can do with my family at home or just in the community is
Or out
really
your
hot. Or, you know, some people even have like pizza in the hut, like they have like little themed things. But it's also like in the fall, so it's, you know, beautiful and it's like that weather where you can be outside and like in your cozy stuff. And again, because we don't keep kosher, like we can do s'mores. S'mores are tricky with like marshmallows sometimes, but like for us, like we can do all of our, you know, hot dogs on the grill or whatever, so.
Amazing. That's good. No, we'll talk about practices and holidays together. So my favorite holiday is actually what Lisa was talking about earlier, and that's called Purim. Purim is essentially if Halloween and Mardi Gras had a baby. That's what it is. So basically Halloween, you go door to door, knocking on people's houses, getting candy, which I've taken my daughter to do that before. She loved it, it was cute. But this, you actually put like little basket, like some are themed, some are not, like just like a little Purim basket together, like if it's like a party favor bag, or you deck it out in like, you know, a box or however you want to do it, and you literally drive around the neighborhood and delivering it to your friends' houses. And it is one of my favorite things to do with my family every single year. You got me and my wife and my son and my daughter all in the back seat, or they're in the back seat, and you know, they're like, whose house do we go to next? I want to run this one. I want to run this one. And it's great. Not to mention we all do this in costume. So it's so fun. And we're talking about getting the community together. There's a huge, St. Louis does Purim better than any other community I've ever been in. I went to college in New York City, so I went to Brooklyn. I've been to the 5 towns. I've been to all those places. I've spent Purim in other cities as well. St. Louis does it best because we do this Purim parade, which brings Jews of all levels of observance together, and you just kind of march through the streets. It's a Purim reenactment parade. You're all invited. So it's a lot of fun, and it's just a great time to be. It's a good time to be happy being Jewish and celebrate being Jewish, and there's no better way to do that than doing it with a community. Something that's a little tangential off that, just part of being proud to be Jewish. So you may notice I wear a yarmulke on my head. Okay, so I get the popular question again is, well, what's that hat thing, Max? Like, what's that thing on your head? So the yarmulke, the reason you'll see people wear it, 2 things. Really, there's a lot of reasons, but there's 2 main ones. Personally, I wear it because I'm not ashamed to be Jewish. I love being Jewish. It's part of who I am. I feel it on the inside. I want to feel it on the outside too. That's number 1. Number 2, it's also just a sign and a reminder that God is above us, and it kind of keeps me in line. Really, like because I have to remember, if I'm taking on the responsibility of wearing a yarmulke, I always have to remember that people can see me wearing a yarmulke. So I need to really keep my act together and make sure I'm acting like what's called a mensch, like a good person and someone who knows the difference between right and wrong on a moment's notice, which I'm not really that good at, but I like to wear a yarmulke anyway. So I actually, if you're interested, I brought, you know, yarmulkes you guys can look at. I have all the sorts here. So I have this one on here. This was purchased in Israel, but I also have other ones. Like from high school, I have a Peter Griffin yarmulke. There's one with an emoji on it. You know, feel free to dig on through it. You're welcome to it. Just a warning, it has all touched my hair. So it's all just totally up to you if you want to try it or not. But there's all different types, and that's what really connects me, is because I'm able to wear what I feel inside on the outside.
do women wear or can wear yarmulkes?
You're amazing
all
today.
the
You're on
questions.
fire. So it all depends. So there are conservative and reform women that definitely wear yarmulkes, and that's terrific because I imagine they would feel the same responsibilities as I do. From the Orthodox tract, they don't, because back in the times of the temple, women or these yarmulkes would only be worn during the times of prayer, and women are exempt from what are called time-bound commandments. So, because women are just factually better than men, so they don't have to do all these cool things that we do, because they're like, you guys are all right, you guys already got this covered. So, basically, since praying is a time-bound commandment, because you don't do it literally every second of every day, you just pray, women were exempt from doing it. So, therefore, today, it's a reminder of, pray and everything, but women are exempt from that because it is a time-bound commandment. Therefore, in the Orthodox tract of Judaism, women do not wear yarmulkes, typically.
Now, I will say I don't want to say the few times, but when I am in a religious service at a synagogue, they usually have a pile of the kind of like doilies, but some people like bring their own. After I got married, I started wearing those during the service portion. If I'm just walking in to like say hello, I don't really bother with it. But if I'm there for a bat mitzvah or just a Shabbat service or whatever, I will put one of those on. And they're just like a circular doily thing that they look really funny and odd, but that's what I do.
Whereas like personally, I don't like putting anything on my head. It's totally vanity. I don't like wearing hats. Like I just don't like how I look in them. I don't like it. So even when I'll keep this short. My family belongs to an Orthodox synagogue and to a conservative synagogue for lots of reasons that I won't get into here. But the Orthodox synagogue we belong to is really excellent. I'm not judging anyone who comes in. And so I have never been made to feel uncomfortable being in the service and not covering my hair in any way. The only exception to that was when my daughter had her bat mitzvah, her coming of age ceremony last spring, and I was like up in front of everyone. I did cover my head for that, but I did it with like a super extra wide headband because that's what felt comfortable to me.
Is prayer still time bound or no?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Multiple, like how many times a day? Or
3.
3, okay.
One in the morning, one in the afternoon, one in the evening. I don't do them all. I'm not that good. there are lots of people I am friends with who are very diligent about doing all of them. I do the morning one religiously, pun intended. But
Are you someone who, like, if we were here all day long, would you like excuse yourself and find a spot for yourself here, or would you say,
like in the morning, if I hadn't prayed,
Yeah.
I would.
Okay.
I would. But for the evening and for the afternoon and evening one, probably not.
So you guys all talked about having like kids. Like, how do you feel about like as your kids get older, like coming into Judaism, like as they see it? I mean, it seems like you guys have kind of morphed, like your beliefs as time has gone on and kind of figured out like what works for you and your family. Like, how do you guys feel about that? I don't know if that's too like.
No, I love that question because it has that's been a huge part of like why I am who I am now. Because like I said, like when I grew up, we were taught to be very proud to be Jewish, but like there was no real action item for what that looked like. When I had my son, and my husband is not Jewish, so there's also that element. I wanted him to have opportunities that I never got. Now he may one day be like, I don't really want to do this or whatever, and we'll have that discussion later on. But so 8 weeks old, we enrolled him in a Jewish preschool. He's been there, until he got to kindergarten. Now he's at a Jewish day school, and they're really providing him things that I can't. Like I don't speak Hebrew, so he's getting that. They have tefillah, which is prayer. They have Judaics, which I would have loved to have at some point. And we're also like, even though I say like I don't really do anything, we are doing more than I ever have because of what you're describing. Like because I do have someone that I want to give more than I had to. That's always on my mind of like, how can we push it every year? Like, okay, we do Shabbat looks like this year. What can we add next year and the next year until maybe one day, I'll be pretty observant. Who knows?
So I've got 3 kids. They're all kind of older, elementary, middle school age now. They also go to a Jewish day. They went to Jewish preschool. They go to a Jewish day school now. So it actually makes it very easy because like their school is closed on all of the Jewish holidays. I grew up going to public school, some holidays I stayed home and some I went to school. I didn't even know you weren't supposed to go to school on those days. But it makes it really easy for my kids because school is closed, so we're home and maybe we don't go to services, but we can observe certain holidays at home. They're learning Hebrew. They can read Torah, which is the Old Testament, like our book that we read. Things that I really couldn't do. That said, even though all three of my kids are being raised by the same two parents, like I can see that they have different levels that they personally are taking to things. My oldest could probably care less. Like I don't know, like they're all allowed to make their own decisions when they leave our house as adults. But she's gonna go to public school next year, and we'll have to make a decision about like if there's a holiday, do we keep her home or do we send her? She's no longer gonna have a kosher lunch at school. And so yes, I would like her to continue to make the same choices at school that we would want her to make. But at some point, yeah, she might do something and not tell us. Like she's gonna be old enough to make those choices. My middle child is all in. Like he would study Judaics and study Torah all day long. If he could, he wants it. My youngest is still like a little bit in between, still kind of figuring things out. But she's a little bit closer, I think, to where he is on that. And I think it just comes down to like, we're raising them the same way, but they're gonna be their own individual people and have their own personalities, and they'll make their own choices as adults, but hopefully we've given them the foundation to build on from there.
Yeah. And I have two kids, and they go to Jewish day school. They will continue to go to Jewish day school. They will go to Jewish high school. And that's what I did. I went, and my wife too. Like I mean, ever since I was in nursery, I was in Jew school. Nursery through 8th grade, then high school, and then I spent a gap year in Israel, and then I went to a Jewish college too in New York City. So for me, like I've gotten a lot of exposure to it. My wife too. That might not be the case for our kids. I think I read I don't call it a novel, it was like a short story in college called Safety in the Harness, which basically went on to talk about how if you're climbing on a mountain and you're connected up top, you have all this freedom to really do what you want until the harness stops, until you can't go any farther anymore. And that's kind of how I base my parenting model off of with Judaism, is because I want my kids to love this. I want to set them up to love it because it's really important to me and my wife. If that means exploring something, great. If that means, but we just want to make sure we keep it like we want to keep it kosher, right? So we just want to keep it in the realm of acceptable that we view until we can't control what's acceptable for them and not anymore. We just want to put them in an environment which will create which will create an opportunity for them to what is successful in our eyes. But the truth of the matter is no matter what they do, they will be successful in our eyes, because what they are doing, like I said in the beginning, is however you decide to connect and whatever makes you connect most to God and to Judaism and the religion itself, that's what works for you, that's what's best for us.
Cool.
Go ahead.
How do you prepare your home and your family for Passover?
Oh boy, this is a good group. It's a good group. It's a long story. That is also, we could go down the panel here if you want. It's
Sure.
yeah. I mean,
Start?
yeah,
You want me to start?
yeah. But what I'll do is I'll get some handouts first.
Excellent. We brought some fun stuff.
We brought some fun stuff.
Yeah, so Passover starts this Saturday night. It lasts for 8 days. Although in Reform, I think it's 7 days, I think. Okay, so what I do in my house, and again, being, I think Reform also. So being part of the conservative Jewish movement, this is not representative of all conservative Jews, this is what we do. I will clean my entire house. At some point, I will find some time to do that. I will deep clean the ovens, get all the crumbs out of there. I will clean my fridge. I will get like my kids like little cubbies where they keep their backpacks. Like I will make them go through and take out all the food in there that's not kosher for Passover. They like to hide stuff in there. So we will clean the house top to bottom. We will pour boiling water on our countertops to make them kosher for Passover. I will scrub the sink. I will do all of those things. And then we'll bring in all of our Passover dishes. So I have a separate set of dishes for Passover, separate utensils, separate pots and pans, a separate blender, food processor, mix, all of those things I have a set just for Passover. It all lives in a couple of storage bins that we keep out in the storage room in our garage for the rest of the year. And then for a week, I basically live out of storage bins. And we buy all kosher Passover food. That I will not go out to eat in a restaurant, even though I will eat during the regular year. During Passover, I won't. And it becomes a little tricky because a lot of our friends will keep kosher for Passover, but not necessarily to the level that we have. So if friends invite us over for a Passover meal, but they don't change their dishes, like we probably won't eat there. And so, again, like for my kids being at a Jewish day school, it's easy because they're closed next week, it's their spring break. But when I was growing up going to public school, more often than not, it wasn't spring break, and so I had to bring like my matzah, and it would break by the time I got to lunch, and would have to bring, the Passover food. So it can be a little bit challenging, but also it's an opportunity to like make things you don't make during the normal year and get really creative. But yeah, we turn everything over for Passover, and I still don't know when I'm gonna find time to do that, but it will happen.
And so our house is obviously much different. We definitely don't do all of that. We have been hosting our own Seder for family and friends, and what we do is we have dinner at our lower level, which doesn't ever happen. Like that's the only time is when we eat is during Passover, and so that space becomes sort of our kosher for Passover space. And we do have separate dishes. They were gifted to us, and so I feel like again, it's sort of like we're not going to keep kosher for Passover the whole holiday, but when we're having people over specifically for a Passover Seder, we do try to, be a little bit more observant and adhere to more things than we normally would. And there's like I'm very big on maybe not the whole holiday every day, but like I love to try out 3 new recipes a year that have something to do with Passover, whatever. So that's kind of what we do.
Yeah, my house is like a cleaning boot camp. Like, it's like we got to put everything away. It's got to be crumb free. It's got all these things. I make it seem like it's worse than it actually is. We really are pretty level headed when it comes to it. But we just we have to put our right now, this morning or last night, we cleared off all of our countertops in preparing to clean them for Passover, which involves dumping hot water on them or a steamer as we use. Yeah, you should. It's really great. It takes 4 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, but it's we put away all of our dishes. We essentially dump out our refrigerator upstairs and freezer and all that kind of stuff, and really creating a separation between the regular food that we have and the kosher for Passover food that we have. So like that matzah that you're eating, right? It's not great, but it's okay. But it's okay. Like you put cream cheese on it, tastes way better. So
You can also like dip it in egg and milk and fry it, and then coat it in cinnamon sugar.
Yeah, but there's so much creative stuff out there, and obviously Elise was the queen of it. And it's just like there's so much that you can do. You grind that matzah up. It's called matzah meal, and you use it like cornflake crumbs or anything like that. Or if you just break it into really small pieces, that's called matzah farfel, which is just like really small pieces. If you put like egg and oil and all that water and all that, you can make it into pancake batter. That's really good. But anyway, so but then there's people like my daughter, who's 11, who will have matzah and cream cheese 365 days a year if it was up to her. She loves the stuff. She would do it all the time. But really back to answering your question, how we clean it, it's really just creating a genuine separation between stuff that is kosher for Passover and stuff that's not. So that includes your countertops, includes your refrigerator. Heck, it even includes your floor at times. So it's...
And your car.
And your car. That's a good one too.
Car.
I'll tell you a story. I was telling Isaac earlier how a couple weeks ago we were driving to Chicago. We drove to Chicago for a wedding. Okay, and they put us there was a whole wedding weekend, and again, we were put up for Shabbos, like at a family's home, like a community, like you visited in Brooklyn, and we did that, and we get to our host home, and the husband takes us in like, oh, come, you got kids, we have all these toys downstairs, please. My kids were given like in a little goodie bag, a box of Frosted Flakes and a little box of Fruit Loops, and they love snacking on that stuff. So anyway, they're holding it and they're getting ready to go downstairs, and the wife goes, and this is February 28th. Don't you know what time of year it is? And I'm like, no. It's like, well, we can't have that downstairs because it's not kosher for Passover. I said, it's February 28th. Passover's April 12th. and anyway, every person, this family was significantly more observant than I will ever be. But they were very nice. I want to make that very clear too. But just like the level of like when you start, like some people start months in advance. There are people that have Passover kitchens in their basements, right? Like they use it like just for Passover, so they can, because again, it's 8 days, and sometimes you host it, you have family come in, so you're talking 10, 20, 30 people, so people need to start cooking in advance. So I know the rabbi at my synagogue, he has, at one point when he was here, I mean, he had 30 people every single meal, including his family. So she starts cooking and freezing all of her stuff in whatever it is, January, February, because when you're with your family, you don't want to spend the whole time in the kitchen, right? You want to be with your family. So people strategize in that. People, as I was saying, people just get so creative in how to celebrate and observe the holiday, and to be able to celebrate it to its max potential. Then you have my family, who let's see what we can do until the very last minute and cause as much chaos as humanly possible.
Yeah, that's the path we're on this year.
Yeah, let's go.
And then it'll get to the point where like, you know, like Friday afternoon, my kids will, like, they're off school tomorrow, but, you know, everything will be clean except for like one small portion of the counter. And I'm like, you can put your food here. Don't touch anything else in the kitchen. And I'll clean certain rooms and be like, okay, you cannot bring food into this space now. You can't bring food. Go outside and eat. Just take it outside.
Remember what I was mentioning before about like how we want kids to like be comfortable and excited about practice? This isn't the holiday for it. Once it starts, the whole Passover Seder is built around children asking questions about the Jews' escape from Egypt and all that kind of stuff. That's really what it's about. So once we get past this part, which is the most stressful part of the holiday in general, it's a very fun and enjoyable and exciting holiday for your family. What other questions, guys?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
So, growing up, were there any like social challenges, especially since like the Saturday, that you guys kind of faced, and how did you guys like maneuver that? It's like, you know, young adolescents, teenagers, balancing like their own personal emotions, feelings, and things of that nature, while still trying to practice religion.
What a great question. Thank you. You guys want to start off?
My answer will probably be the shortest because I wasn't very observant, but what I will say is that there were always two reactions when people found out that I was Jewish. One was kind of on the like jokey stereotypes, things like that, and there was a lot of like, was that a jab at me? Or like, should I say something? But I'm not really Jewish, so I shouldn't feel a certain way. So I didn't really have any challenges in terms of like the religious side of things or whatever, but just being Jewish, I think, framed me in a certain way that sometimes I had to like address with friends or even with adults around me. And that was probably the biggest challenge that I faced, just to be like, you can't say that. Like, that's not true, or that's, you know, an outdated stereotype, or not, you know, like my grandma, you know, she had a certain profession that was always looked at as very like a Jewishy thing, and I'd just be like, that's just her job, guys. Like, it's not, she has a job. So that was sort of like my biggest challenge.
So I grew up in a town that had a lot of pretty decent sized Jewish population, but not a huge observant or religious population, and most of those kids didn't go to the public schools, but I did, and every year there were always like something. So our school district was always closed the first day of Rosh Hashanah, the Jewish New Year. So that was great. It was closed. I didn't have to deal with it. But Rosh Hashanah is a 2-day holiday, and so every year I had to tell my teachers, I'm not going to be in the second day either. And they would look at me and be like, well, they're going to be here, and they're going to, like, all these other Jewish kids are going to be here. And I was like, I understand that. Like, my family stays home on this day and goes to synagogue on this day. I won't be at school. And I think I mentioned earlier, like, growing up on Friday nights, I wasn't allowed to go out, like, with my friends. I had to be home. Eventually that changed. But, like, yes, there were times in high school where I would get really, really mad because everyone was going to the movies at 7 o'clock and I had to be home having Shabbat dinner, which I did not want to be having at the time. And now that I have kids, I'm like, no, you're gonna be home for Shabbat.
Believe it or not, I experienced more challenges socially as an adult than I did as a kid. When I was a kid, as I said before, I was in Jewish school my whole life. So my friends, my family, everything I did revolved around Jews, and I didn't really have anything outside that box, which I'm actually really grateful for because I had a terrific childhood. Now, that being said, I still wear a yarmulke on my head, and I still am an easy target for anti-Semitism when I walk around. And I always remember this. Probably the most frustrating thing I experienced as a child was, I mentioned before that I don't drive on Shabbat. I walk to services. I always have. So I was just walking to services one day, and all of a sudden I hear a car horn like just not stopping. It wasn't like telling a car to get out of the way. It kept honking at me. The gentleman had rolled down his window and he told me to run away, you effing Jew. So I was 12, so that was cool. But anyway, as an adult, I thankfully haven't really experienced anything like that. But in terms of social challenges, like when I got my first job out of college working in a nursing home, I worked with non-Jews, like almost all of them. And I never had that before until I was 23 years old. And honestly, it was a challenge, but like I'm still really good friends with these people today. Like I get together for happy hour or dinner with them, once in a while. Like it's really meaningful because as an adult, it's a lot easier for me to explain why I do what I do as opposed to a kid when I was still learning why I do what I do. And let me make it very clear, I am still learning. But there is, I would say, especially in today's world, there's a lot of challenges that go along with being a Jew than not. Yeah, one more question. Or none, up to you. Such a great group.
I know we kind of covered it, but can we go over just one more time for my sake, honestly, kind of the importance of the bread being unleavened and kind of the origins of that?
Absolutely.
I mean, I know the kid version that I don't know exactly.
The kid version is pretty accurate.
Yeah. So when we were slaves in Egypt, the story goes that all of a sudden they were told that they had their freedom, so they were quickly baking their bread and didn't have time to let it rise, so they slapped the dough on their backs and ran, and it baked into this hard flat cracker. Although there are other Sephardic traditions that have a softer version of unleavened bread, I don't know why that one didn't catch on because it's probably a lot tastier.
So much better. It's also probably the more accurate matzah
Yes.
that was back.
Yes.
Yeah. So.
So maybe we can, I don't know, change that at some point. But yeah, that's where the unleavened bread comes from. And then so many other things in Judaism, it's been interpreted into every aspect of the holiday. So I've never seen my hummus rise, but you're not allowed, chickpeas are not supposed to, you can have legumes, beans, there are other things that are no longer considered kosher for Passover, even though I've never seen anything happen to them that could happen to them. But maybe you can talk a little more about the why behind that, because I don't really know.
I don't know either.
Okay, cool.
No, it's more of you're just being extra strict and making sure that if there is a possibility,
Yeah. Yeah, so in addition to that, we don't do corn, we don't do legumes, we don't do peanuts, which I think are technically a legume, but other nuts are okay. So there's a whole range of things that we don't eat.
In terms of items that aren't you have I'll use Lay's potato chips again as an example. Lay's potato chips, they're not kosher for Passover ingredients, and it's not kosher for Passover factory, so therefore it's not going to be kosher for Passover unless the factory shuts down and what's called koshers everything, which makes it kosher for Passover. Then you could have those potato chips, but there are other chips like Manischewitz, it's all they're kosher for Passover year round, so it makes it a lot easier.
I do have another question, if you have time.
Yes.
I got time.
Are there, what's in the church, synagogue? What's the top, is it priest, rabbi, a rabbi?
Yes.
Are there women in
Great question.
those roles? Are they allowed to be? What does that look like?
So Elise and I Elise belongs to two, I belong to one synagogue, where we have on staff right now 2 male rabbis and 1 female cantor. There are other synagogues that have female rabbis and male cantors. There are people that are female rabbis that aren't affiliated with the synagogue. But yeah, it's for what I've seen in my circles, women and men can be in those clergy roles and teacher roles and.
So one of the big reasons, when Reform and conservative Judaism kind of broke off from Orthodox Judaism, one of the big things was being egalitarian, and so women, I think first in Reform Judaism and then much later in conservative Judaism, could become ordained as rabbis. Whereas in Orthodox Judaism, they cannot, except there's a sort of other title that some Orthodox synagogues have.
Well, a Yotzei Halacha
Or a Maharat.
Yeah, if
So-
that's
Yeah.
that's another story.
Yes.
But yeah.
But most commonly, if you go to any Orthodox synagogue, the rabbis they're definitely going to be men, and in Reform Conservative, it can be either. It just depends on who they've hired. It's also the big difference if you go into an Orthodox synagogue, the men and the women sit separately. There's a divider between them, either divider like that or maybe a second, a balcony level. Whereas in Reform and Conservative, the men and women can sit together.
What is that, apply to the children too? Like they have to,
Good question. So, no, it does not apply to the children, traditionally up until I guess they've been bar or bat mitzvah, but usually just the younger children will go wherever they want, or they'll just run around like maniacs. I was gonna just say something else, but I can't remember. Well, anyway.
Thanks, guys.
Well,
This is
thank
awesome.
you.
Really appreciate it. You're all so wonderful. If you ever want to ask us questions, my contact information is on the Jewish Federation website, jfedstl.org. I'm the large man with the yarmulke, so feel free. My picture's on there. You can reach out to me literally whenever you want. We'd be happy to speak with you and continue the conversation. It is such a pleasure to be here, Isaac, and thank you so much for coordinating. It's really, really appreciated. And just thank you all for coming. We really appreciate
And
it.
we're JCRCSTL, a little bit different website, but same thing. We both have our pictures and contact.
If you can find one of us, you can find all of us.
Yes. Federation and JCRC are neighbors and good friends. And so all this to say, what I was really excited about was hopefully you got, the message that like, we're all very different, but like, I don't ever see Max in the hallway and think, oh my God, he doesn't really think I'm Jewish, or I'm not Jewish enough in Max's eyes, or I don't think like, oh,
You're
Max.
so Jewish in Max.
And I don't think like Max is just showing off, but this and that. Like, we're really all different levels of observance, but like really one community and one people.
So thank you all again. I'm excited to
Appreciate it. Thank you.
like this, collaborate with both your organizations. I mean, y'all are such great partners, and I appreciate you finding the time, volunteering the time, and making the trip today.
And all
Just
the
thank y'all.
snacks. Guys.
Oh yeah, these are all yours. Keep them.
Yeah.
Enjoy them.
And-
They're all yours. I'm telling you, take that matzo, slap some cream cheese on there. You're
I
welcome.
believe you.
Yeah.
Do it.
Where in, which college did you go to?
Yeshiva University.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So where did you live?
I lived in Washington Heights.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.